Welcome back to this lesson on laying audio tracks. In the previous lesson, we reviewed our different sort of media files from our different cameras, and we actually identified our good shots, put them onto the timeline, and then rearranged those in a way that actually created a rough edit, a rough storyline. So we kind of had the maps at the introduction. We had our travel out to the desert. We then started riding through the desert, had our first lunch stop, continued riding through the desert, a second lunch stop, and then we had some epic drone footage, and then trip into Jarbidge, and then we finished up in the town of Jarbidge. And we talked about in the previous lesson what we were going to do with the audio. So now we're at a point where we want to lay audio down. And the reason we lay audio down now, before we do the video edit, is the music and the voiceover will actually help create structure and in some ways even sort of dictate the edit. And what I mean by that is, let's say that you're cutting your video to the music. You need to have the beat of the music there in order to space your edits out. So this is a really good time to sort of bring in the audio, and we're kind of doing like a rough lay down of the audio tracks. And then once we've got that, then we can move and start fine tuning the video edit, and then we can fine tune the sound design after that. So that's the sort of logical progression. In the previous lesson, we sort of identified that we've got some really big epic footage here, and this is the last day. So we kind of wanted some quite epic building music to sort of finish off the end of this, epic 8-day ride. So I'm going to be looking for that, an epic sort of euphoric type building climactic track of video. So I can make this quite dramatic. And then I'll also look for a second piece, which is because I'm probably going to start building this climax up from the time we get into the desert. So there'll be a track of music which goes through here. And then I probably need another track which I'll play, which is kind of the build up where I sort of discuss why I think you should still do this first section of the Idaho video. Okay, so let's go. How do we find music? So I'm going into my web browser, and I use a website called Epidemic Sound. Okay, now this is not free, but it's a pretty modest, if you're into video production, it's pretty modest, the actual pricing. Let's see if I can find out what it is. So I've got a personal account, $12 a month. For $12 a month, I get incredible music and access to the sound effects library, and I can download and use as much as I want. Okay, so in my book, that's pretty good value. Okay, so let's start with music. So you can see when I click the music tab, it's actually looking at my YouTube channel and some of the music that I use, and it's actually making recommendations for me, which is probably not a bad idea, because what I do is I will constantly listen for music.
I ran up a check, I might do it again. Enemies close, had me thinking they're
okay, and if I like it, like that, it's not a bad track, then what I do is I add that to playlists that I've built. So I might say, I'm going to put that onto my adventure music, and now that's just added to my playlist. So I start building. If we have a look, go into me, and if we go into my playlists, I've got lists of music that I've built, which I've put into different categories, like, euphoric, having fun, adventure music, suspense and drama. And so I'm kind of constantly just keep my eye out for good tracks of music, which I can use in the future, and I'm building my lists. But what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how we can find a specific track of music. So if I go into music, and then I can there's different ways that I can actually browse it. So I can look at it by genre, electronic or acoustic or jazz, classical. But in this case, I actually want to search for it based on a mood. So I'm looking for some epic music. So I'm going to go into the category of epic. And then I've got all of these different filters. I can filter, I could then say, oh, now I want classical or whatever, but I'm going to use the different moods. So I'm going to say I'm in epic and I'd like something euphoric because it's, it's the climax of my amazing ride. So it's now filtered on epic euphoric music. And so if I start listening to it now, down the bottom here, you can kind of see the waveform. And I can jump to anywhere. It's not bad. Modern classical. No, I don't want classical. Marching band, definitely not. Castles in the Sky. Now I can just look from the waveform. I can get some idea of what this is actually like. So this is building. So that's good. I really like that one. So that's a possibility. So I can add that to my adventure music. But the one I actually chose was this one here, And We Fell from the Sky. And if you look at it, you can see that it kind of rises up a bit. So it's very quiet, building. Sort of dramatic. And it quietens down again. And I'll kind of use that for my reflective part of the ride. And then it starts building again. It goes into a climax. So I love that. So that's the track. That's going to be my first track. So once I've found a track, I can just simply hit the download button and say download the full mix. And that's it. That's now coming down into my downloads folder. So once I've got that, I found the second track of music that I found. If we go into my... So the two tracks of music that I actually downloaded here. So this is that one I just downloaded then, and then We Fall from the Sky. And this second one is called Still the Same. And if I just play it a little bit, I'm going to use this at the start of the track. So it's kind of slightly dramatic and a bit sad. It's a bit sad that it's our last day of riding. Okay, so they're my two tracks of music. So what I have to do now is bring them into Premiere. Now, remember, I've got to keep my files organized. So if I open up my hard drive where I'm doing my editing, and I go into my video tutorial day 8, this is browse by column. So video tutorial day 8, I've got my media, right? So there, okay, I've actually got an empty folder called music. So I'm gonna just copy those two music files into that. Because remember, I've got to keep organized. So now all my music files are going to be together with my other assets. And now what I've got to do, now that it's in the right place on my hard drive, I've got to get it into Premiere. So if I just bring that across, if I'm in assembly mode and I can see everything here, you can see I don't have a music folder yet. So I can just take that whole music folder and just drag it in here. And that's going to import those in and create a music folder for me, okay? Likewise, I recorded, I went out and I recorded my voiceovers. So, I'll just talk a bit about how I do my voiceovers. So I use a little lav mic, which clips into onto my shirt. I tend to go into the bedroom because I've got a lot of material, soft material around me, which absorbs the sound. And I plug that lav mic into my mirrorless camera. And I'm just recording it. That way I'm getting the highest quality audio recorded as a video file. So here are the two files where I recorded all my voiceovers for this. So I'm gonna drag those two files again into my voiceover and let them go. And now they're here stored in the right place on my hard drive. And I'm now going to pick that whole voiceover folder up and import that into Premiere as well by just dragging. So now in Premiere, in my project, I've now got these two extra folders. I've got my music with my two tracks, and I've got my voiceovers here. So we're now ready to essentially start laying down our audio tracks. But before we do that, I'm actually not cutting to the beat of the music, but I'm going to actually bring in just another music track, and I want to just show you a pretty cool trick for making it easier to cut to the beat of the music. Okay, What I've done is I've just brought in this other track of music. I'm not planning to use this, but I want to just demonstrate a pretty cool technique. If you, it's just a useful technique. If you're going to be editing to music, if that music's got a beat, so if I double click on this, right, and I just sort of play this music, it's got a sort of slow build, but now it gets into... Okay, so there's a good drum beat there, and often that can be quite good to edit. So one way to make it easier to edit to the music is if you actually bring that up, and then you want to put your finger over the letter M for Mary, and that stands for marker. And what we're going to do is we're going to just tap that M as we're playing it to the drum beat, and it's going to put markers down on that audio track. So I'm just going to do it from here. Okay, so you get the gist. Now if I zoom in, you'll see these little green markers here. They're the markers, and you can see they correspond to the drum beat. So now if let's just go to the end of here, and I'm going to bring that audio file down into my project. Okay, so you'll see that I've actually got these markers laid out on the audio file. So if I wanted to sort of cut to the beat, I'll just copy a bunch of these, Command C, let's just lay them down here, and Command V. Okay, so now when I zoom in, if I want to cut to the beat, right, I can just start lining these up. So just line that up, and then if I look at let's say I wanted to do 2 seconds, and then roughly say 2 seconds again, and then say 2 seconds and 5 frames, and then another 2 seconds. So now if I play that, so all of the edits on the beat of the music. So look, that's not really relevant for this tutorial, but it's just a very cool technique by marking the audio track on the beat, and then it makes it very easy to make all your edits on the beat of the music. Okay, enough of that. So let's go back to the project that we're working on. I can use the / key to see the whole timeline. And now I want to start putting down some audio tracks. So I'll get rid of that one that we're not using up here, delete that. So we're using this dramatic one. If I drag that down here, we're going to use that roughly from when we start riding in the desert, okay? And then I've got this other one which I'm going to use at the beginning. Now let's just talk a second about organizing audio tracks. And so actually we haven't talked too much about the timeline. So you can see here V1, V2, V3, this is the start of my video tracks, and they stack on top of each other going up. And then the audio tracks go from the bottom, audio 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can add as many as I want. Here's how I kind of organize the audio tracks. I tend to make track 1 and 2, they're going to be I reserve those for any sound that's coming off my camera. So you can see here, in fact, let's make that a little bit bigger. Okay, so this here is the audio track for that video. So track 1, and I leave track 2 as extra space, that tends to be my camera audio. I tend to make audio 3, that's going to be my voiceover. And in fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to mark these just so that they're really clear. So if I go into my audio mixer, I can actually mark these. So I'm going to call audio 1, I'm going to call that camera 1, I'm going to call that camera 2. Audio 3 is going to be my voiceover. Audio 4 is going to be sound effects. And then what I want to do is actually add some more tracks in here. So if I come down the bottom here, I say add tracks, and I'm going to add, I'll add 1 video track, and I'm going to add, let's do 3 audio tracks after the sound effects. Okay, so you can see now I've got sound effects. I'm going to call this audio 5. I'm going to call that music 1. And then audio 6 is going to be music 2. And you'll see why we kind of have like multiple music tracks and things like that. So that's kind of how I'm going to organize this. And if I think it's, is it, I think Option Plus. Yeah, Option Plus will expand out all of my tracks. And now you can actually see the little label comes in here. Music 1, music 2, sound effects, voiceover, etc., etc. Okay, so let's go back into editing mode. And so now you can start to see which is which in terms of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this music track down onto music 1 and the second music track over here. Okay, so now I'm roughly laying down my music together. So as I start to play the beginning, and I'm going to just, there's two really useful buttons here. M is mute, S is solo. So if I wanted to listen to the music, I can press solo. Okay, and it solos that track. And likewise, if I want to play here now, I can solo that track. Okay, it's starting to build. So they're my two sort of main music tracks, and you know, I'll move them around in a moment, but I've sort of got them down. The next thing I want to do is kind of start laying out my voiceover. So if I come into my voiceover, the first thing I've got to do now is I've actually got to slice these up. So for example, if I double click on it here, let's go into assembly mode just because we've been working in that mode. So if I go into voiceover 1, so this is, I just recorded black, but in here is my sound. So I find when I'm working with voiceover, I actually click on, instead of looking at the video, I look at the audio here. Now I get this really nice video waveform.
I was sad that my adventure was ending.
Okay, so let's go to the first one first, and we're going to start slicing up that audio. So these are all the different takes that I've had, and you can see it makes it quite easy when you're looking at the audio waveform. So let's drop in an in point, I.
We started the day early on our last day because we knew we were riding through the desert. We wanted to enjoy the cooler temperatures.
Okay, so that's my first bit. So now I can hit O, and what I can do is I can just drag that down. So if I just grab the audio and I can drag that down. Let's move my timeline up a bit. Collapse that. Okay, so I want to drag this onto the VO, onto this track 3. So grab that. Oh, in fact, I've already dragged it down onto the wrong track. So let's put that down there, roughly. Okay, so that's the first bit. Let's go to the second.
We started the day early on our last day because we knew we were riding through the desert and we wanted to enjoy the cooler temperatures.
Okay, so that was the second take. So I'm going to hit out, and I'm going to just drag that down. So I grab the audio waveform and drag that down. I'm going to delete that first one.
Now, I've heard a number of people say that you should skip this section of the Idaho BDR because it's boring and it's barren. And if you're riding the BDR from the south to the north, I get that. There must be an impatience to get to the forests and the mountains, which really are beautiful. But maybe...
Okay, so I'm going to split that voiceover there. So I'm going to hit O for out, and I'm going to grab that down. So there's another little snippet. And now I can just hit I, and it's going to turn that out point to an in point. In, whoops, I was in the wrong panel there, so I'll just Command Z to undo that. Click into here and move my playhead there. Now I for in.
But maybe it's because I'm from Australia and I'm used to the wide open spaces, but I love this section. It was such a contrast to ride flat out in this amazing scenery.
Okay, O for out, and drag that down. Okay, so I'm going to keep doing that, and I'm just going to save you, but that's the process I do for slicing up my voiceover. So let me lay all the voiceover tracks just roughly down there, and then come back. Okay, so I finished adding those in now. So just again, we've got this first track here. That's live audio from GoPro and things like that. Then we've got nothing on camera 2. Voiceover. Here is our voiceover that we've recorded. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 snippets, and then we've got our 2 tracks of music down here. And let's just sort of play the voiceover. So I'm going to solo it, and you kind of hear the storyline.
We started the day early on our last day because we knew we were riding through the desert and we wanted to enjoy the cooler temperatures.
So that's going to be, I'm going to be moving that under this kind of vision here.
Early on our last day.
Okay. Then the next bit is probably going to be somewhere out here.
Now, I've heard a number of people say that you should skip this section of the Idaho BDR because it's boring and it's barren. And if you're riding the BDR from the south to the north, I get that. There must be an impatience to get to the forests and the mountains, which really are beautiful. But maybe it's because I'm from Australia and I'm used to the wide open spaces, but I loved this section. It was such a contrast to ride flat out in this amazing scenery.
So that last one I'll have when we actually get to the desert. So that's kind of going to be about there with this sort of desert riding. Then this next bit, let's go do that.
I kind of find my zen when I'm riding in these conditions. I just go to my happy place and just love being out on the bike in nature.
Okay, so we've got that, and then we've got the reflection.
I spent some time reflecting on the week and the amazing experience that it's been. The sights, the fantastic riding, and the camaraderie of doing it with a small group of like-minded people who share my passion.
Okay, so that I'm going to put those two together because they sort of work well together. I get into Zen and I reflect, okay? And then let's listen to this next bit.
If this video inspires even a single person to try a BDR or to try riding their bike on dirt or to explore the backcountry, then job done.
Okay, so there it's kind of, I want to sort of build the drama and I want to get people sort of motivated and inspired as the music is going up. And then I've got one more bit here.
Because if you love being on 2 wheels, there is no better way to see the world than exploring it on dirt.
Okay, and I think there should be, yeah, and then here's my last 2 bits.
We finished the BDR in the small town of Jarbidge, Nevada. Another one of those towns with an incredible history and a boatload of character. I was sad that my adventure was coming to an end, but I'm super thankful that I got to experience it, and I'm already planning my next one.
So that's going to be right at the end of the video. And in this case, right, if you look at the music, I'm going to pin those 2 bits of voiceover to this. After the climax, there's a long tail here. So I'm actually going to, when I sort of start sequencing this properly, it's going to kind of go in somewhere like that. Okay, so you can see how the voiceover is sort of being aligned with the music. And again, with some of these, like this one about, if I play that.
There is no better way to...
So that's going to be, I want that to be on the sort of the build. So that's going to be, here you can see the music's building. So I'm going to put that on the sort of the rising build. In fact, the music kind of does this build and then it pauses and then it just goes sort of nuts here. So I'm going to sort of stick that, so just before, so that's on the build just before that. And then this is, I think,
even a single person to try a...
So again, this is sort of as the music's sort of ramping up. And then here's my reflection bit. Now I want that, if you look at the music sort of builds up and then it goes really quiet here. Let's just solo the music for a second. So here it goes, sort of all like little wind chimes and things like that. That's where I want this reflection bed. So I'm going to grab that and sort of slide that in about there. And you kind of see in a moment how this all starts to come together. So I'm kind of using the music to align the voiceover, and then I'm going to align the pictures to the music and the voiceover as well. Okay, so this bit, so this first bit, this is about solo.
Right down. And I'm used to the wide open spaces, but I love this section.
Okay, so that's going to be in the wide open spaces. So that's probably about there. Okay, so we started laying the audio tracks down. Now there's a couple of things I want to do now. So we've got all of our voiceovers here, but if you remember, we've actually got Neil doing his briefing up here.
Touch the Nevada state line and then.
Okay, so these are the audio tracks for that. So I'm actually going to move them off camera one. I'm going to move them down so that they're all on my voiceover track. So now you've got sort of background audio at the top. I've got my voiceover here, and then I've actually got 2 tracks of music down here. The last thing I'm going to do, actually no, I'll do that in the sound design. Actually no, I'll do that now. Even to sort of start listening to these things together, you kind of have to just do a rough and like if I play everything now, let's go for example here.
The Nevada BDR, so a great place to go to.
Right.
With that context.
The audio is too soft, and the voiceover is too soft, and the music's too loud. So even to start putting it together, I just do 2 very simple things. The first is I'm going to select all of my voiceover tracks, okay? And I'm actually going to apply an equalization to them, which will actually make them really stand out. So I'm going to go to my audio tab here, which just changes my setup. And you can see I've still got my timeline here, but I've now got these sort of audio effects on the right-hand side. And again, to select multiple tracks, you can just sort of click and drag like a lasso around them. So now I've got all of my voiceover tracks selected, and I'm just going to say that's dialogue. And I use a preset. This comes with Adobe, and the one I used is a balanced male voice. Now, whoops, looks like I missed those first 2 tracks. Okay, dialogue, balanced male voice. And what this does is this applies a whole bunch of equalization to it, which just makes those voices stand out a lot. So if I now solo them.
Highlight for today's route is just the open wilderness.
So it'll actually boost that and just make it punch through much more. The second thing I do is once you sort of pull an audio track apart, you can actually get the volume line here. So this is like a volume control. So I just bring that whole volume control down, and if you see that sort of decibel setting there, probably somewhere around about -18. Same with this one. I'm just going to bring that down. And that means now that as I'm just roughly start to editing, we're going to fix this in the sound design, but I can kind of hear the audio much better.
Here in Glens Ferry, heading directly south all the way until we touch the Nevada state line, and then finishing up in the town of Jarvis.
So I can still hear the music there,
the end.
and still hear the music under it, but now I'm focusing on what's going on. Okay. So that's kind of that's now the end of this lesson, and what we've done is we've kind of brought in our voiceover, we've brought in our music, we've arranged our audio tracks, and I think you can see now how by doing this, the timing of the music is going to help us decide, what we put into the video content and things like that. So these audio tracks and the voiceover is providing us a really good framework or structure. So that's the end of this lesson. And in the next one, we're actually going to look at the video edit. So we're going to start doing the proper video edit now and making it all start to look good. See you soon.